It's claimed the Nazi scientists conducted a series of narcotic drug trials at the radar station at Montauk. The Nazi scientists could have brought in other scientists who worked at Lab 257, located at Plum Island in Long Island Sound, and this lab was an animal research lab. Many of the Nazi scientists, who worked at Lab 257 were highly skilled chemists who may have been hired to manufacture the narcotic drugs, for the scientists working secretly at Old Radar Station at Montauk. Peter Moon and Preston Nichols also suggest the Nazi scientists may have made contact with the mafia inside New York City, and the scientist purchased the narcotic drugs from the mafia. Like some wealthy New Yorkers, some of the mafia families have vacation homes in Montauk. The German scientists may have been copying some of the work of Dr. Timothy Francis Leary, an American psychologist and writer who supported the idea of using psychedelic drugs during the 1960s, at Harvard University. The Nazi scientists could have conducted experiments using LSD, psilocybin, mescaline, and a psychoactive drug called DMT, which is also known as the spirit molecule, as the test subjects would report experiencing some intense symptoms after consuming DMT. The symptoms include auditory and visual illusions, hallucinations, and out-of-the-body experiences. They would also experience altered states of consciousness. Tests using DMT on a group of volunteers, who experienced having the same type of hallucination where they would encounter machine-like elves, and some experts believe these reports run parallel with some of the alien abduction reports. But some researchers believe DMT may induce an altered state of consciousness, making the test subjects capable of seeing various non-human entities or hyperdimensional beings, which are generally invisible to our physical senses. It's claimed the Nazi scientists used one building on the Montauk radar station, where they conducted a number of drug trials, on visiting military personnel, who went sent to the space for rest and relaxation. This building is the commander's house, where a number of bedrooms were decorated with old 1960s or 1970s psychedelic wallpaper. Anyone who is high on narcotic drugs within these rooms would see the psychedelic wallpaper come alive, and the patterns would move and swirl around, which would induce an altered state of consciousness. During the 1970s and early 1980s, the Nazi scientists used talent spotters to lure homeless kids away from New York City, with free offers of food, drink, and drugs. The talent spotters may have searched airports, bus, and train stations for homeless children. According to Peter Moon and Preston Nichols, they made a visit to this old radar site in the mid-1980s, and they discovered U.S. Marine stickers inside one of the barracks, and the two authors believe this evidence that U.S. military personnel were sent to this radar station for rest and relaxation, and they were used as part of a narcotic drug trials being held here. The U.S. military did have a more relaxed attitude towards drug use during the 1970s, and it wasn't until the early 1980s when the U.S. military started to admit there was a drug problem on many military bases. So the U.S. military clamped down hard on drug use, where personnel caught taking narcotic drugs could face a dishonorable discharge. The main purpose behind these narcotic drug trials at Montauk was to develop drugs to induce an altered state of consciousness, where a person would enter into a trance-like state, making the person more psychic. Yet the Air Force personnel, who worked at this radar station at Montauk, claim that no such drug trials occurred at this base. But after thinking about this denial for a long time, the Air Force personnel may deny any such activity, as these drug trials may not have been officially sanctioned by the Air Force, and they could have got into serious trouble if they confessed to conducting secret drug trials on Air Force property. The Air Force personnel may keep quiet about the former Nazi scientists working secretly at Montauk radar station, as they may have been paying them to look the other way. This could land them in serious trouble with the authorities, where they may have been handing out drugs to teenagers and young adults, who were lured to this remote radar station, from New York City. This drugs trial reminds of a news report in the 1990s, where soldiers were sent to a chemical defense lab, run by the Ministry of Defense in the UK. The soldiers were offered rest and relaxation at this site, but they were used as guinea pigs, where they were used to test new antidotes for chemical weapons poisoning. Years later, the soldiers successfully sued the Ministry of Defense and they were awarded compensation for the injuries they received during their stay at this site. This sounds very similar to the drug trials carried out at Montauk, and this trial was shut down when the U.S. military clamped down hard on military personnel caught taking narcotic drugs on military bases. If this is the case, then this drug trial may have been an unofficial project, which didn't have the consent of the Air Force. This could also explain the lack of official documents relating to drug trials taking place at Montauk.